Hi, Tania,
Hello.
the wiser woman. I meet the wiser woman.
She's in you. She's in me. She's in every woman. She is not only me.
Yeah. Well, yesterday I made a video saying I feel like I'm turning into a witch. And someone said, "You're catching your wise." And I thought that was so amazing. Because that's how I feel. It's quite something in between days of not sure how I feel. But yeah, your book is really cool. You wrote it last year in 2022. And you have a very different take on this, a very informed take. And as you said, you're not a medical professional, but you combined your own experiences with so much common sense and research. It's really like a bomb to read and a complete counter to the current narrative. So I guess I just sort of wanted to get into you to saying, you talk about menopause from a soul, divine intelligence, energy field, which are words that sound woo-woo, but you go on to explain, no. So why don't you just, if you could sort of nut graph what the essence of what made you write this book could be, and we'll go from there. Yeah.
So I have been in this space, let's say, since 2015, when I had a spontaneous healing experience of my own multiple perimenopause symptoms that I was experiencing as crazy making. And I was able to heal all those symptoms just through insight alone. And at first, it was sort of like, what's just happened? And then with time, I saw, oh, wow, this is something quite special, and I should share it. And so since 2015, I've been sharing what I have seen can be so useful to allow us to transform our experience of midlife change. And I've been offering a course on the internet and coaching, mentoring, and speaking and writing. And just in the summer of 2022, finally the book came out. It'd been there on the back burner for a while. And the book came out. And I wanted to keep it short and concise and offer women a different message than the media, celebrities, certain doctors, members of parliament seem to be offering women these days, which is to look at menopause as a disease. Menopause is not a disease. It really is a rite of passage. And I hope I can comfort women and inspire them with my book. Yeah.
Why do you think this narrative is so appealing to everyone and to the people perpetuating it and to the people who are taking it in?
Yeah. We have got very used to outsourcing our health. And it's a different take on life if you think, oh, anything I experience, I'll just run to a doctor and I'll get a pill for that, or a patch, or cream. Then really looking within and saying, well, what could be out of balance here? And what could I be responsible for innocently? Because I don't think anyone wants their health to be out of balance. But innocently, we do get off nature's path, and we do create circumstances that we can experience as discomfort. And so if someone comes along and says, oh, don't worry, you don't need to be responsible for your health. Here's everything you need that's going to save you and make you feel better. It's very attractive because it feels like the easy way. And it's not only for perimenopause and menopause, it's for many things. There are doctors who talk about, that they can reverse heart disease and diabetes, but you have to go into someone's pantry and sort out what they're eating, and you have to encourage them to do exercise. Whilst for some people, they would much rather say, oh no, I'll just take a pill, and hopefully that will, get me back into balance. So our body's all the time talking to us and trying to help us back to a path of balance. And we can listen to it and take responsibility for our health. And in the end, that is really the simpler route. And it's much more empowering route. Or we can say, oh no, I'm just going to outsource it, and I'm just going to run to a doctor, and I'm just going to run to another doctor if the doctor doesn't give me what I want. And that's just become so appealing. And I guess it's because we live very busy lives. And we don't want to perhaps look within, and we don't want to look on, how perhaps we're eating or what stresses we're innocently creating. And it just fits in with the sort of modern way. Oh, I'll just take a pill for that and I'll just solve it. So like today, it's just become even worse, and we'll probably get to that. But it's not only about bringing you relief for symptoms through some kind of pharmaceutical magic, but it's about preventing disease down the line. So it becomes even more attractive. I mean, who wouldn't want something that comes with a promise of preventing disease? Even when you actually look it up, there's no science to back those claims. But it's just so appealing, and it just feels like the easier route. But actually, looking within, healing our symptoms turns out to be the simpler route and the more empowering route, like I said.
And so that's why this requires, you said, a shift in consciousness, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I call this whole thing our hero's journey, because I took a screenwriting course actually in England. I traveled to the National Film and Television School, and then I found out about the hero's journey, which is the core of every story or poem, and I became obsessed with it and applied it to everything. But I think it's like this call that comes, and you can go one of two ways. It's like all the nonsense in my life up till now where I have been pulled hither and yon and looking outside myself. Like, I feel very strongly that this is a time where that's changing. But it's like we're meant, like this, it happens for a reason, it feels like. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I see a lot of people who just want to get back to the way they were. They've been living in this sort of high octane way, and they want to get back. And it's like you hit a sort of a bump where it's like this shift in consciousness is required, or you continue externally looking for solutions.
Yeah. So in the West, we have this sort of idea that, well, aging comes with disease and comes with a sense of downhill from now on. And there is this idea that women reach midlife, they reach this point of change, and then it's just disease, or disease prevention, there are checks that you need to be, tested on, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't buy into that. I think that we have innate health, and I think that our body has all the wisdom that we need to guide us and keep us in good health. And there are times when we innocently create conditions that take us away from that path. Now, I think there's a brilliance in the design of midlife change that allows us to wake up to where that path of good health lies, to how we can keep ourselves on that path of good health. And so in our 20s and 30s, perhaps, for some people, they can get away with eating badly, not moving, living a high-stress life, being in unnourishing relationships, all these things. And they can, like I said, they can almost get away with it. Come midlife, we can't, because the body's not interested in that anymore. The body's not interested in us creating physical, emotional stress and thinking that it's okay. Because the body's already looking forward, and it's already saying, oh, you're moving into this sensitive time. And if you want to be protected down the line, we can do that. But we can't do that if you're going to continue with these conditions that you create in your innocence, right? Mm-hmm. So this consciousness sort of coming to the surface and waking us up, it's part of the design. It's part of the design for protection. And if we just suppress this discomfort that we feel, if we just say, I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to heal the trauma, I'm not going to start eating properly, I'm not going to move, I'm not going to do all these things that are just common sense pillars of health, then maybe, the discomfort that we experience becomes disease. But that is not inevitable. Mm-hmm. So medicine wants us to believe that it's inevitable, because then we can go on these subscription kind of, routes of drug taking for the rest of our life. But disease isn't inevitable. We have the power to get back onto the path of good health. if we want to take it. Our body really wants us to go down that path.
So in your mind, and this has become so controversial, and it's been controversial for a long time, hormone therapy is what?
I think it's based on a false idea of women's bodies, first of all, because it's based on an idea that women's bodies are stupid. And if you ask any doctor, well, why do you think that women's bodies get it wrong come midlife? Considering all the amazing things that women's bodies do, considering that no one needed intervention to develop from a baby to a child, to a teenager, to a woman, and then often, a mother. Who needed intervention then? Most of us do not need intervention at any point. So why does the woman's body get to be stupid, according to this theory, come midlife? Why do we need hormones? Why doesn't the body know what we need as we age? So it goes back to this narrative of the woman is like destined to malfunction from a misogynistic idea of we just don't understand women's bodies and they're just out of control and dangerous. And so we must control it and keep the woman as we only know how to experience woman, which is in her fertile years. And surely, if a woman is not reproducing, then there's something off, and she needs the hormones that she had when she was able to reproduce. So it comes from this very, very misogynistic origins, this idea that the woman's body is stupid, you need to replace the HRT. And no doctor can tell me, because I've asked them, well, no doctor can tell me, why do we actually need them? And the only answer that they ever give, which is false, is because, well, once women never used to live beyond menopause. And women have always lived beyond menopause. And in my book, I reference the Bible, the 2nd century, the 12th century. And these are examples of, menopause of women in literature. And there is never a reference to menopausal women as freaks of nature, these few freaks of nature. But what people do.
You also, sorry to interrupt, but you also say something, and I was like, yes, you said there would be no grandmothers.
Right.
If that was the case.
Children would live without grandmothers. But, there would be these, there are these charts that you see with life expectancy, average life expectancy is important, increasing over the ages. And so you could look back and you could say, oh, 16th century England, women were dropping off at 40. No, that's not actually what the chart says. In 16th century England, child mortality was incredibly high. It was terrible. And this is what decreased average life expectancy over the years. Not that women got to 40 and dropped off. Drop dead. No, they didn't. And neither did men, by the way, and it's never used against men. So this is the only reason that you ever hear from a doctor or a celeb saying, why do women need hormone therapy come midlife? Oh, it's because we never used to live beyond midlife. But that's wrong. Okay, so why do we need it? Why is it that women's bodies get it wrong? Are women's bodies stupid by design? Is there a bug? What's going on? And that being said, I know that some women do get relief from hormone therapy. And it acts as a kind of desensitizer for women at this sensitive time. But the question is, do we want that? Do we want that long term? So I know, and I've been in the thick of the symptom, like the soup of the symptoms, as I call it, because they were coming from all areas, and they're physical and emotional, and the night sweats and the migraines and the skin problems and the 2 weeks of PMS. I've had that, and I know how crazy making it can feel. But the solution of desensitizing us so that we just don't realize what's out of balance in our life, and I was out of balance in my life, then, is that the solution? Is that what we want? Because the way the body works is if you desensitize it, you haven't solved the problem. You haven't brought yourself back into balance. So it will come out somewhere else. And that's what happens with menopause symptoms, by the way. It's incredible that we sort of associate 30 plus, now 40 plus symptoms with just these few hormones. Like, is that possible? No, and apart from the fact that you can be out of balance and get those symptoms when you're not in menopause or perimenopause, but no one seems to mention that. And now everything is just thrown on menopause, thrown on our hormones are getting it wrong, our hormones are going crazy. But why? Why would they go crazy? So like I said, if for some women, if they're really in the thick of the symptoms and they can't see their way out of it, then hormone therapy can be useful as a kind of first aid measure. But it should be just to turn down the volume of the symptoms a little bit, get us back into a place where we can say, okay, now the fire's gone out a little bit. What can I do to bring my life back into balance? Like what does my body want me to know? And this is what I really like to ask clients. And we really often know the answer, even if we don't want to hear it. You know, what is your body trying to tell you? What does it want you to know? And when we turn down the volume of symptoms, perhaps we can answer that question. And perhaps we can take ourselves back into a path of good health. But that's what it, could be used for if women feel that they really need it. And by the way, it's not a simple drug to take at all. From the women that I've spoken to, they've had to come on and off all kinds of different HRT until they find one that seems to work for them. But luckily, it can be used as a short-term measure if women really feel they need it. And then really, let's tune into the body and find out what it wants from us to bring us back to good health.
Well, the most responsible doctors who speak about it in this way, like an accessory, a light dusting, a tool among many tools. The ones that concern me are the ones who speak about it as the main essential event, because it's just, there's not enough women on hormone therapy. I mean, it's very hard to get a grasp on how many women take hormone therapy. That's something that I find is difficult to decipher. If it's half of women, if it's a third of, and it's different all globally as well. Have you been able to get a handle on that?
Yeah, I mean, suddenly it seemed to hover around what the quoted statistic is of about sort of under 20% in the UK, I've seen. But these days, following the last few years, when hormone therapy has just been pushed as the wonder drug once again, just like in the 1960s, I am hearing from lots of women in the UK who are saying, all my friends seem to be going on HRT, and I seem to be the only one who's trying to find a natural route. And it's because this, hormone therapy, once again, is being promoted as a wonder drug, a cure-all. Your absolute, don't need to worry about anything. From like, if you don't have motivation to exercise, to severe depression, to heart disease down the line, to dementia, it's everything. And who wouldn't want that? Oh, I'll just take a pill and my health will be great. And of course, it's totally lacking in science. There are very few symptoms that HRT can help with. And perhaps the major one, I know that lots of women who have night sweats, and like I said, I used to have them. If you have lots of night sweats during the night, you're not sleeping very well. And so, just allowing you to sleep is sort of a major change, and people feel much better if they can just sleep. But I'm happy to report that just from, me understanding something different on the emotional, spiritual level, I was able to stop my night sweats. So I didn't have to go in and fix my hormones. So tricking the body into thinking that you're back in your 30s, that is a way, but is it, the long-term solution that we need?
So in your approach with the shift in consciousness and all that, and you talk about it as a desensitizer, do you think that it could actually sort of slow down whatever the sort of spiritual, emotional, psychological shift that's happening to sort of coming back to yourself to go on HRT?
You mean if women go on HRT, then the desensitizing? Yeah.
Yeah. Does that, in this consciousness shift that sort of menopause is all about, we'll go on to talk about the wise elder and all that. But yeah, do you think, because I feel myself changing, and I sometimes ask myself, okay, because I think about going on hormone therapy for all, I get swayed over all the time. I'm back and forth on it. Then I think, but could it stop this in this natural lifting I feel of myself, this like changing and growing? Will it take me back in a way? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It is tricking the body. So, there's that. And if we see, as I do, menopause as a rite of passage, then why do we not want to embrace that in all its glory? And rites of passage are not, a walk in the park. What can we do? Like for some women, the transition will be smooth. And I think the women who I've spoken to, it's because they've done a lot of the internal work before. So they come to midlife change at a really great place, but they were having a really rough time before. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's just, again, part of the design that we're supposed to graduate. We're supposed to graduate to an elder. We're supposed to go through this rite of passage. And we could look at it and say, well, it's interesting that there are some powers out there that aren't interested in women going through this rite of passage, aren't interested in this empowering journey, aren't interested in us coming through and, you know, changing to something much more powerful, which is what I see happen to postmenopausal women. And even the process of perimenopause, I see some things happening with women. For example, I hear it again and again. I just don't care what other people think of me. You know, I'm just going to do this. I just don't care. You know, these kinds of things. Well, that's a move to empowerment. That's a move to stepping into your true self. That it seems to be part of the process because I hear it so often. And if you drug that down, you're not going to experience it. So who benefits, who loses?
People must get really mad about when you say this, because people, first of all, I feel like some people will say it's denying their experience, right? Like they needed hormone therapy and they went on and hormone therapy fixed it, which is true for some people. But how do you deal with that? Because we are in a place where, no, I need this. Like it's hard for me. And I guess the people who are doing the least internal work, which you need to do whether you go on hormone therapy or not, in my opinion, in life, right? It's just like why we're here. But how do you deal with the anger? Because there's so much anger.
Yeah.
And it's coming from women. Like it's coming from women.
I've been called all kinds of names and continue to be called all kinds of names. And yet at the same time, there are women who love my work. There are women who love my message. So the thing is, it's actually not my message. It's about where the women are in their lives. Because if my message was, you know, one thing, then everyone would have the same reaction, but not everyone's having the same reaction. So it's about where women are in life. And I've spoken to women who have told me that the first time they heard me speak or, you know, read my blog posts, they thought I was mad and they hated what I said. And, you know, one particular woman comes to mind, she was on HRT and she's like, you're not, you know, tuned into my experience and et cetera, et cetera. And I was suffering and of course I needed it. And with time, she became more and more open to what I was sharing. And then she was actually able to come off HRT because she herself was able to look within and do the work. And it's not even so much work, but it is sort of like gathering an understanding about our innate health. So yeah, there is a journey. There is a journey.
How much, so many of us walk around saying I'm not enough. You mentioned it in your book. I have, it's been a long-standing feeling. I think it's a lot of women, a lot of people are walking around thinking I'm not enough, just the way I am. How much is this playing into it? I'm not enough.
Yeah.
In menopause and not tackling that fundamentally wrong belief that we have.
Yeah.
How is that playing into the whole thing? Yeah.
So many women come in with that belief. And it could be for so many reasons. You know, I speak to women, they're like, I'm not enough because I believe my mother never loved me, or I'm not enough because I've never had the kind of relationship that I thought I would have, or I'm not enough because I'm not in the job that I thought I'd be, or because I didn't, or because I'm not an at-home mom, or because I'm not, you know, everyone like has a different reason of why they're not enough. And I guess it's something that's coming also from the outside that we're sort of absorbing that makes us feel this way, because we have all these expectations and we have all these media around us that's, you know, showing us women being enough, supposedly, you know, looking like this, doing that, et cetera, and it's all false. But, you know, we internalize it, and then we hear this, I'm not enough, and we start taking it seriously. And that's what I used to do. I used to hear that I'm not enough because I was juggling my little business and my kids and everything. And no one else was telling me that. But when I heard it, I believed it and I took it seriously. And then I started thinking, well, surely it's not that I'm not enough. There must be something I need to do. So then I would be very busy doing things, which, you know, brought the focus even more into that sense of, oh, actually, I really believe I'm not enough. And then my insight was around my relationship to thoughts. So just because a thought comes into my head, any thought can come into my head. I don't have to believe it. I don't have to entertain it. I don't have to take it seriously. It's a thought. I can't control the thoughts that come into my head, right? If someone walks through the door and they look like Michael Jackson, I don't know, right? I'm going to be thinking about Michael Jackson. So, I can't control the thoughts that come into my head, but I can have a different relationship with them. And that is so much easier than trying to control your thoughts, trying to change your thoughts, trying to make sure that you believe that you are enough, even though you feel like you're not enough. No, the thoughts come into my head even today that I'm not enough. I just don't believe them. I don't take them seriously. And my insight was like, well, I really actually have a choice. The thoughts come into my head. I don't have to control them. I don't have to put a gate there. I can just let them pass through. And then I have a choice. Take them seriously, analyze them, try and fix them, try and change them, or just let them flow. And I realized, I think my life is going to be much simpler if I just stop taking my thoughts seriously. And it's as simple as that. And literally within days, all my symptoms cleared up. So, I had this insight and it was sort of impacted me on a profound level. And I often say, I wish I could just copy and paste and hand that out. But it's really about seeing the nature of our design. And in the West, we overanalyze, we use our critical thinking and we think it's the magic potion to solve, our problems, when actually there is this guidance system within us that can always guide us. We just don't know how to interact with it. We don't know how to listen to it. We've forgotten. Other cultures haven't forgotten, and other cultures have, far less disease and problems and symptoms, etc., than we do.
One of the best things I heard was a couple of years ago, like, my thoughts are real, but they're not necessarily true. And so that way it's like, okay, just sort of notice and observe. So what's missing is this. I always say this is going somewhere good. And this is what I never hear in the menopause conversation. Like, it's just like, this is a horrible thing that shouldn't be happening. Full stop, done. And then disease. And it's like, you talk to any woman who's 70 or 60 and they're like chill and they're happy. And if you ask them about menopause, which I've taken to doing, they're like, yeah, it was hard. But gosh, on the other side. So this is what you're talking about with the wiser woman, the wise elder. We have this throughout history, and you mentioned examples in your book. But how do you remind women that this is where they're going and to listen to yourself on the path there?
Yeah, it's about building trust with the body right now. And it's really hard to do that if you're getting these messages of menopause is a disease, you're deficient, you need these hormones for the rest of your life, that are, this message that's being pushed out so strongly these days. But we can leave those messages aside and create respect, love, and trust within our body. And there are different ways that we can do that. Experiencing your body as miraculous is a really good way. And I'm sure that we've all experienced that. I'm sure that we've all seen healing to occur, or if a woman's given birth or she's breastfed, there are ways that we've seen our bodies in miraculous ways, or we've climbed a mountain, or we've skied down a mountain. We're like, God, how did my body actually do that, right? So it's creating this new relationship with our body that will be so transformative and will allow us to come through this period of change, which is a sensitive period. But, it's so life-changing. If you're stuck in a mode of, my body's betraying me, I'm deficient, this is a disease state, everything's going to go wrong, it's downhill from now on. And imagine you're saying that to every single cell in your body. Like, imagine what's going to happen. And then if you come from the other approach and you're like, I completely trust my body. I absolutely know that my body's got this. My body is designed for this. Why would my body betray me? Why wouldn't it act from any other motivation, right, apart from love? And that's what's true, actually. And I've seen that, and I've been testing it, and I've seen it with women who I work with. They come in and they're like, my body's betraying me, and I hate it, and I'm suffering, and there's never going to be an end. And even just from, a few weeks of working together or doing my course, they come out and they're like, well, my symptoms have gone. Like, how did that happen? It's about changing the relationship with your body, because your body knows, your body can help you. Your body doesn't want you to suffer. That's not part of the game here on earth for us, right? We're supposed to live in joy. We're supposed to be able to experience all the wonders. And this whole idea that the hormones are getting it wrong, and it's malfunctioning, and it's so made up. And it's such a disservice to women. It really is.
And once you start listening, like I'm healing right now from a variety of things that I had a bad gut for a long time. And then I just lived ignoring it, right? Like pounding coffee, I've done that for years, but you can only do that for so long. Your body can only be out of balance for so long, running on backup pathways. Like things are going to start to back up. That's just my non-medical assessment of what's going on with myself. But I have a thyroid, like Hashimoto's, so I'm dealing with that and some other things. And I'm working with an integrative physician. And I took the first week off that I was working because I needed a week off. And I took the first 2 days off, and they were quite heavenly. Like I slept really well. I felt better. My brain was working. Then I didn't take the next 3 days off because I could see work piling up and I was here. So it's very difficult to take time off when you don't actually go away. And then everything got worse. I really was like, your body was responding to the rest that you needed. And then you pulled it away. You yanked, I almost feel like we're talking at this point. And that feels crazy to me, but not really, because I said I would give my body something. And I have been denying it that for a very long time. And then I pulled it away. And what did I get? Was like all of the symptoms that had led me to that diagnosis came back. My sleep was terrible. My mood was low, my brain fog. And I really got a lesson in how this needs to go. Like, again, I've had this lesson many times, but do you hear stories like how many times? But I feel like I'm getting it now, because it is like now like another entity that's sort of, well, I'm not going to do it. You're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it, kind of thing. That's how I feel. That's what I feel it's like.
Yeah, because the respect for the body is so lacking in our life, right? We just don't grow up with that. It's just not part of our culture. So, but even we see it, for example, I remember like working in corporate, working really long hours, traveling all over the place, and then boom, right? I'll be in bed with a fever. And you can get really pissed off and, I've got all this stuff to do. But it's so clear that the body's like, now you're resting. Like, we're not going on like this. Like, that's too much stress. And now we're going to rest and detox and whatever. And then you're going to come up and you're going to be fine. But now we're doing this, and the body takes control. And we're just like, okay, no, we need to give in. But we can be communicating with the body all the time. We can be listening in, and we do it. We do it. Like if we were to bang our, arm on the door all the time, like the body would start responding as stop, and then there'd be bruising, and then there'd be, and we would know that would be a bad idea. But these more subtle things that we get that come through feelings that the body's telling us, it's not. When we have a thought, for example, I'm not enough, and we take it seriously, and then it comes with a feeling, and then we think, oh, well, that's serious. There's a feeling. I feel really bad. That's actually a misunderstanding of the feeling. The feeling is this divine guide that comes in to tell us your thinking is off. You're in low thinking right now, and you can let it go. It's not, and that's why we feel bad. Not because there's truth in the thought. There's truth in our state of mind in the moment. Like that's what the feeling is telling us, but not about the thought. Do
you have a little bit more time? Because I have a few more questions, but I've taken you beyond an hour. Okay.
I'm going to sneeze though, for some reason.
Okay. All right. That's the worst feeling. Get it out. No? Did it go away? Okay. That was a little one. Wow. It's interesting because just last week I came across this. I mentioned a doctor's name is controversial, and someone on my list said, you know about that doctor. And I was like, yes, I know about that doctor. I'm aware, but I think they did good work, and pointed me to a podcast and pointed me to this whole, like I went down this rabbit hole that I had kind of known was out there, but I wasn't paying much attention to it, which is this notion of toxic white woman wellness. And basically, this is in the US, and this is a situation where, I think one of the people that gets it on this is Louise Hay, who's passed away, but she founded Hay House Publishing, has written tons of self-help books, and was a hero to the AIDS community. But then the argument is that she's telling people who have AIDS that they are responsible for getting their AIDS. And so you're telling a lot of people who got conditions that are not their own conditions, but it's not their fault, but you're telling them their thoughts led to their conditions. And this is toxic white women wellness. And it's also racist. Like there is a racist because it's, anyway, I'm interested because I feel that you can say my thoughts can impact my health without blaming people for their health. I just wondered what you thought about that. And are you aware of this? Like, it seems to be a very tricky area. And I'm confused how the thinking of my thoughts can influence my health has become like a minefield of leading to racism. I don't really understand.
Okay.
I do and I
not
don't.
So why, but that's, beside the point. But is that response only comes from insecure thinking, right? Because we think that you can hear what I'm saying and you can say, you're attacking me. And women have felt that I'm attacking them because it feels like I'm, pulling the rug from under their feet because they have rested on this narrative of blame your hormones, blame your genes, blame the weather, I don't know what, blame something else, but just don't look within, right? Just don't take responsibility for your health because there's money made, there's money to be made for like seeking solutions from outside of ourselves, rather than I'm coming along and saying, well, you have everything you already need to heal yourself. Well, who's going to make money out of that, right? It's just like, I'm not, selling a subscription service for the rest of your life. You can heal yourself. So it challenges things that we know. And it's like someone taking away, if you spent all this time blaming your hormones for something, and then I'm saying, well, maybe it's not your hormones. Maybe it's something that we're innocently creating ourselves. Like, of course you want to say, no, it's the hormone. I don't want to look within. It's not, it's got nothing to do with race or anything else. It's to do with looking within and connecting to our true selves. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. And connecting to the spirit, the soul, the divine wisdom that exists within my body and everyone's body, like regardless, no matter what. And I know that it can feel uncomfortable. And I know that it can feel like I'm blaming someone for their own condition. We do these, like, we fall off the path of good health innocently. Like I said, no one wants to feel unhealthy. No one wants to experience symptoms. But our society just hasn't created any kind of understanding for us to catch as we grow up, even as adults, to understand how health works. It's all about blaming a circumstance, blaming something in your body, blaming a chemical, blaming it. But what if health isn't that at all? And once we can have compassion for ourselves, then we don't feel like I did this to myself on purpose, right? I suffered those years with all those symptoms and felt like I was having a crazy time just because I took my thoughts seriously. Well, did I do that on purpose? No. And I have compassion for myself. I didn't know. Like if I knew, then obviously I wouldn't be doing it. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Once I saw the impact that had, once I saw that, oh yeah, I do have a choice. Every single time I have what could be an uncomfortable thought coming into my head, I have a choice. Entertain it, analyze it, get caught up in it, or just let it pass. And the nature of the design is you can just let it pass. And then you don't live with stress. And then your body thanks you. It's like, it just works like that. It's so much simpler.
So what is going on in the UK? Like at first it was the menopause revolution and it was so much further ahead. And now it's awful. I don't know what's going on. You tell me. From the outside, I just see no ability to have a rational discussion or an intellectual debate. It seems like it's all HRT all the time.
Yeah. I think the UK is a test case, and I understand also from a client that it's also happening in Ireland, that there was this big shift in 2017 that the North American Menopause Society changed their hormone policy document, their hormone replacement document, statement policy, something like that. And it took out all the parts that would say that HRT can be used for prevention of disease further on down the line. And it narrowed down symptoms to 3 main areas. And for some reason, in 2017, the British Menopause Society did not endorse that document, whereas menopause societies from all over the world did. And I don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but it seems that there was some kind of other path that the UK was set to take, and it seems like Ireland too. And so what we have is now celebrities, members of parliament, certain doctors who are media stars going on telling women that the HRT is this wonder drug, just like, you know, we heard back in the 1960s, and is the solution for all their problems now and in the future. And for some reason, they're doing that without any control, feedback, you know, I don't know. There's the Davina McCall program advertised pharmaceutical products relentlessly. And that's against the law in the UK. In the UK, you cannot advertise products that you need a prescription for. It's not like in the US. And so I don't even know how that got onto TV, but it did. So there's something very peculiar going on. There's some sort of forces that have come together to push out this narrative and make women feel very bad, very scared, very worried about what future diseases they're gonna get if they're not taking HRT. And I cannot, after watching the Davina McCall program, I wrote about that in a blog, that I just cannot imagine that the producers of the program didn't know what the fallout from that program would be. I mean, literally, social media exploded. Women were so fearful that they, you know, were not going to be, you know, looking after their health if they're not taking HRT. Women were encouraging each other to go and demand HRT from their doctor, even if they have a history of cancer, even if they have a history of whatever it is, you know, and go to another doctor until you get your HRT. This isn't medicine. This is like some kind of fear-based mind control. And I don't know how, you know, it's come to blossom in the UK, and it seems like it's now traveling over the pond and going back to North America. But, you know, it's very, very peculiar, and it's not scientific. It's not evidence-based. It's based on fear. And I've learned through my life that I do not follow a path of fear. And I encourage women not to follow a path of fear. Like, we should not be making decisions from fear. We should be making decisions from love and from clarity. And there will be truth for us when we do that, but not truth for us when we are pushed into a corner and forced into taking some kind of medication for fear of what might be. Yeah, it's really peculiar.
You wrote an amazing blog post about what was going on. It was so brilliant to me. It was about the documentary. It was about the shortages, and you were talking about a sort of mind control. Can you just sort of synthesize that for us? Because I was like, whoa, because no one sees this. And the way you described it, I was like, aha.
So that documentary that came out in 2022 it just happened to fall in the months around shortages, we were told, of certain HRT products. And what happened is that the media were running these stories, interviewing women, claiming that they needed HRT to prevent them from suicide, to help them with slip discs, to all kinds of things that there's no science to back it up. And it seemed to be very convenient that it wasn't like a doctor coming and saying these things or any kind of scientific journal, but here there were just women like making these claims about HRT that are totally unscientific. And the media was publishing them as if it's science. So that sort of created this backdrop for the documentary to then come onto the scene. And then before the documentary was broadcast, all these other media sources were sort of pointing to the documentary and encouraging people to view it, which was most peculiar because I hadn't seen that in the UK before. And then the documentary itself came, and it was non-stop pharmaceutical promotion against advertising laws, as I said. And then the fallout happened. And it's just completely changed the way that women view HRT and view their bodies and view menopause. And it's relentless. It's just kept on going on. So then there was this, the menopause revolution was all about taking women back to the 1960s, believing that their bodies are malfunctioning, believing that they've entered a disease state, believing that they need a pharmaceutical drug in order to preserve their health. Like, what's revolutionary about that? What's feminist about that? It's most peculiar. But there are these group of people that, get a lot of media time and a lot of airtime, and their message is relentless. And so, of course, women are, thinking that that's the only way to go, and that menopause is terrible and something to fear, and disease is inevitable, because that's what they're being told all the time.
Well, this has happened around the world, but just my background, journalism, journalists are becoming activists in a lot of realms. And this is happening in North America too, where I just find most of the journalists that are writing about this have one approach. And I even was interacting with a British journalist on Twitter once, and she said, well, I think it's just really important that we all get in line. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is not
whose line?
That is not what journalism is. And I have always revered British journalists, although now I've worked with a bunch. So it's not, my revering has come down some notches because I've heard about some of the practices. We're quite different. We're quite different in North America and Britain. I found that out when I moved over here. Like, British journalists are much more likely to set some things up, create some scenarios, if you know what I mean. Like, we're very, North America is like, no, I can't give that kid a baseball to take a picture of him because that wouldn't be real. But I like the way some of the British journalists I spoke to is like, nah, I will just set it up, but that's why it's a lot more fun. And that's a gross generalization. But what's interesting to me is that the Daily Mail has emerged as having some of the most balanced reporting on this. And I guess that's because they're contrarian, right? So they're always trying to pick the contrarian approach. Yeah. So, there was an article recently that they did about the whole testosterone craze. And it was a really balanced article about the problems with everyone wanting testosterone, because it's, this is a serious thing. And then that was called medical gaslighting, which I understood medical gaslighting to be like when my doctor doesn't believe me and tells me that what's happening to me isn't true. Medical gaslighting isn't like a very balanced journalism article pointing out that caution needs to be exercised. And we need to be, we need to query a lot of these things that are being said. And so I wondered what you thought about, do you see that?
Yeah. I mean, the other problem is, though, that it's creating even more of a divide, right? And that sells even more clicks. So we seem to be, moving to a time of extremes. And I know that they got a lot of, pushback for what would seem to be a balanced article, right? But that all feeds the sort of like fear and confusion and what's going on and the roller coaster ride of, menopause, HRT, what should they be on, etc., etc. I don't have much respect for the media in the UK anymore, and because I've seen what's happened, over the last few years. And for example, The Guardian, I don't know them, but I've seen their work before, and they used to write much more balanced articles about menopause. And now it seems that there's an HRT editor that comes in and says, oh, if you're going to be writing this, piece about midlife or about menopause, put in HRT. Put in, oh, that she wasn't offered HRT by a doctor. Put it in. And it, you know, it just seems like it's so bizarre when you read what's happening this year, last year, etc., and you compare it to even a few years ago, the same journalists. Like, what changed? Why aren't you writing balanced articles anymore? Why doesn't there appear to be another route? And if, you know, now it does seem that the HRT usage has changed in the UK, but if it was, you know, once hovering, you know, under the 20% mark, then that would seem to suggest that there were lots of women who weren't interested in HRT and who wanted an alternative approach to menopause. And so why wouldn't you think, oh, well, overwhelming majority of women in the UK are not interested in HRT, so let's investigate all the other things that could help women, right? But just like the Divina More Core program, they sort of gave like a second to the Mediterranean diet. But the sense was very much like, well, there is this sort of like thing about the Mediterranean diet, but there's a pill that will work better. And if the pill hasn't even come out, then there are other pills being developed. You know, that was even like, you know, pushed in the program. So I just don't buy it. You know, it's not my experience that there's no other way. And I've spoken to women, you know, for years now, and there are lots of things that women can do to help them through menopause. And it really does come back to, well, let me take responsibility for my life. Let me perhaps slow down. Let me see what my body needs. And like I said, it's such a more empowering path. Then I need to be struggling with to find the right doctor, to get the right dosage, to then not be caught up in some corporate supply chain that might dry up when it seems to be, I don't know, like if there's, you know, something that the media, you know, can pick on, you know, the supply chain drying up. But it, you know, why would you want to be tied up into that when you can just really feel the power of your own menopause and control, you know, your journey through it?
Choose your own path. Okay, what's some parting words for people who are struggling? What's your first step?
Yeah. If women can see that their body is brilliant, like that is transformational. And I have seen that women's bodies are brilliant. And I have seen that women heal their symptoms when they really fall back into that and relax into that. And so how we can experience that will be different for every woman. But I ask women, you know, how can you experience it? How can you change your relationship with your body? And then how can you change your relationship with your thinking and start experiencing life in a lighter way? That is the way that we're designed to go through life. Really, there's this intelligence there that can guide us. It can guide us physically, guide us emotionally, spiritually. And it's there for all of us if we just relax back into that.
Okay, well, where do people find you and your work?
At thewiserwoman.com, thewiserwoman.com. And you can look me up on Facebook and Twitter by my name, and I'll be there too.
Well, thank you so much.
Your
book really spoke to me.
I'm happy.
Amazing.